we'll do the Q&A first, and then we will do the we'll do the labs, okay? Oops. It went great, actually. Yeah, they got what they needed. It was probably a task to track me down to do these things.
Really?
Because I was on a lot of different committees, and yeah, I really tried to like navigate my schedule, but finally it went through and it worked. So yeah, I'm happy that's done. One task done. Oh, one of the many. I just feel like March and April is just not enough time. Like I'm looking like it's already end of March, and I was like, where did March go? Okay, so chapter 7 today, it's a little bit longer than the last chapter. However, it has a lot of the reviews from CIS27 and also from the prior chapter. So it's nothing too new. I try to make it where it's not just about management, so you're gonna have a little bit more technical. And of course I was going through the revision of the lab, so I'm sorry I didn't have time to really thoroughly test it. I try to update it as I catch some of those things. Open source tool change so quickly, so even if I wrote it a month ago, bless you, sometimes it changes, and so I had to update it, but we'll troubleshoot it in case it needs to, but I think it's gonna go pretty smoothly. So we're gonna talk about defense in depth, and in this one, it's really having a bigger picture and then narrowing it down to the sub area. So this is really important in security design on how you overlook at the entire infrastructure. So as we mentioned before, infrastructure will encompass cloud, servers, your desktop, your devices, appliances, your assets. So everything, web applications, database, you name it, whatever for IT operation, that's part of your infrastructure. And some infrastructure would encompasses the enterprise network, the subdomains, the child domain, the parent domains, a lot of different things. So it is a very large scope in most cases. So when we build the security solution, we really have to take a look at how the solution is going to work into some of the sub area. And in this textbook, particular chapter, I kind of like how they lay it out in where they target layered security. So for your certifications, they are expecting you to know what is defense in depth. And it is a way that we apply control in different layers in our security solutions. And we're going to hit the 3 major areas: your technical control, your administrative control, and your physical control. And these are the general controls categories that you see that's going to help us maintain our CIA. So coming back to our questions, it asks us, number 1, to describe and provide example of security controls and defense in depth. And after this class or throughout this class, you're going to be more comfortable with knowing what are some of the areas in general. So as you move along, you're going to automatically kind of know what these things are as you see it repeatedly. So in the technical control, anything that has to deal with configuration, with setting up, installing in the technical area, like if I'm configuring my server to have the policies that it needs to be able to manage access, or in some cases, we would configure firewall, or we would configure intrusion detection system, prevention system, or even routers and switches to make sure that it detects, prevent internal and external threats. So you need to have your alarm system, and you need to have your, whitelist, blacklist, a lot of the things. So technical control encompasses a lot of the things that we do in IT and in security. And then in the administrative control area, this has to do with how this is going to carry out for your business and for your people. So think about administration. That's going to deal with policies, which are, it could be internal organizational rules. And policy could be like, you cannot bring a USB to work, right? You cannot download from, malicious website. And so it could be, user policy, it could be other policy. And we want to also make sure that people are aware and knowledgeable in the type of risk that we deal with in the technical area and in the overall business. And some of the threats can come in the form of the logical side, which deals with our technical control. But the threats can come in the form of the physical area. So some of the things that we can implement for physical control to deter, right, prevent and protect is simply putting physical locks on doors. Sometimes you would have barricades that could be barbed wire fence, or some cases walls, steel walls, things like that, depending on the type of environment you're working with. And we can also provide surveillance systems. Surveillance allows us to monitor the physical activities and our assets. It also allows us to detect issues along with deterring potential theft in other area. So anything that can cause harm to our physical environment, that could be systems, right? That could be, our work area. So your assets is part of what you are trying to protect in security. And so these are just some of the simple example. We can expand on it for a long time, right? But you want to understand what type of controls that you're working with, especially in defense and depth. You need to cover those three type of controls. And coming back to our notes, right? This is kind of, covering some of the part here. So in our layered security, this is the model that you see. You're going to see the core is going to be your data security. And to access data, we would use the application, which is on the outside of data. And then to access the application, we use system, which is your endpoint security. And to access your system connected, you are going to have the network. So it is methodically laid out, right? And then your network is part of your entire infrastructure, which belongs in your perimeter. So that will be perimeter security. So when you're looking at the layered, you're going to work from the data out to application, to your endpoints, devices, to your network, and then perimeter. Okay. So if you think about data first, it's kind of help you understand what's the next layer and what's the next layer after that. So before we talked about zero trust, let's go to number 2. So it tells you to refer to the layered security model and to provide the security control example for each of the layers. So we'll start with data. And that's an easy one, right? We can encrypt data. That's normally the go-to solution. Now, encryption, we're going to talk later on about how that can tie back into what we're protecting relating to encryption. So encrypting data doesn't always make it 100% safe, right? It's just make it more inaccessible to unauthorized user. But encryption is going to give us some form of protection, right? Instead of having unencrypted data. But we also think about data that's on the move. So if you can encrypt data that's stored, right? But if you are encrypting data that's in transit, you have to look at your technology and how you're using data encryption when it's being transmitted via the web, right? Access in database or transfer via email. So you have to think about the different types of data. Encryption is a very broad area, and we have to really think about how that's applied in specific use of data. Then for the application, some of the area that you can see is we can validate some of we can validate the code, like check your input validation to prevent injection. That's one example. We can look at where the application is hosted and whether there's security measure in application server. So there are a lot of different overlapping areas that we need to really build for security in these layered model. Now for the endpoint system, and that could be your smart devices, tablets, smartphones, laptop, desktop, TVs, etc. So the physical things that we should focus on is what would be to prevent theft. So anti-theft, we can use a software that track GIS location. We can implement security software for anti-malware and also access via VPN. There are a lot of different things that we can put the endpoint system through to make sure you can do zone control, authentication policy. There's so many different areas that we can touch on. Okay, so this is only a couple of things. And I try to make it a little different across. For your network security, and that really is how all of these devices are interconnected. We need to have an alarm system, which is your intrusion detection system. That's gonna sound off when you have an anomaly in traffic. You can have a prevention system that's gonna deny unwanted traffic, like some form of denial of service attack. We can have firewall, and we're not narrowing down to specific. You can have edge firewall, you can have internal firewall, you can have double firewall. There are many ways that we can integrate firewall into the network to make sure that we screen, block, and allow certain type of traffic. Then access management. And then for the availability area, we want to touch on load balancing. You want to prioritize your traffic that's important to your operation, but not because everybody says, oh, throw an appliance on there, add an IPS, add a firewall. But when you screen too much, sometimes it impacts how your traffic is coming through. Yes.
Can't a firewall block running traffic to extent?
Yeah.
Like the amount of times that a system continues or something like that, right?
Yeah. So so you can disable a certain service like ICMP. You can also set rules on if they ping more than 3 times, right? Block the traffic. You can allow ping. You just can't, you don't allow pings over a certain period of time. You can do time span. So, your host firewall is like your Windows firewall and other like UFW firewall. Those are very limited. It only control port and services. But when you use more intuitive firewall, right, you're able to set up more custom rules. That's a little bit more comprehensive to your network. And then for perimeter security, we talked about barricades, fence, locks, walls, turnstile, right? Like you've seen this at amusement park to control one person to enter at a time so they can limit the amount of people entering the building. Security guards. This is more monitoring and then also deterrence. And most importantly, I think many of us tend to forget the simple things that comes with the facility is your fire suppression or your fire alarm system. In some cases, we have to deal with earthquake stuff because our equipments are heavy. And so you want to make sure that you secure that physically, right? Depending on your region and your area, and then also sometimes compliance. For us, we deal a lot with OSHA as far as the physical part. Any question? Okay, So you don't have to put verbatim, you can add or subtract things as you need to, but I want you to kind of have a bigger picture on if you get asked these questions, you should be able to come up with example or know the example so you can answer the question on certifications. This certification is very close to Security Plus and CISSP. So it's in between Security Plus and CISSP. So you're going to see overlapping things. All right. So let's talk about some of the next things. In the text, it talks about zero trust. So it's suggested that we remove trust that we normally place on system services and individuals, because sometimes these trusts are, they exist and somebody can take advantage of that, right? For us, human to human, we tend to trust a certain individual and we would give them the responsibility and we add on to the responsibilities. On the system, trust is really related to certificates on how system can trust another system based on what's given to the other system. So you can look at the CA, your certificates and how that plays into the trust, and possibly looking at the permissions on the certificates that's tied to the trust. So if you're not using it, remove it, and that's normal practice. Okay, so here it talks about individual devices and application are part of the overall design. So we have to make sure we think about the blend of technology. And, you know, for all the things that I come across and I read, everybody says that, oh, mix things up, right? When you have cloud technology, use Azure and AWS. But for IT management, that becomes very cumbersome. When you have so many vendors, what happens is you have different level of support, different level of services, and it tends to become very difficult. So for many of the practice, most IT manager, they would streamline and say, oh, I would use 2 types of vendors. I get discounts and, you know, so there's benefit and disadvantages in this area. But you do understand that there is a different set of technologies and that could be changing all the time. So managing, monitoring, and assess needs to be continual, right? It's not something that we do once a year and we forget. And, you know, back in the day, that would be the case, right? Like we do it mid-year and the end of the year, and that's okay, but it's not the same. Okay. So in this part, it's going to talk about the next question, but when you work with segmentation, this is very important in security. You can physically segment something. So for example, if I want an isolated lab, I would connect all the system for that lab, that room, and I don't connect it back to the network. What I can do is I can have a different switch that uplinks to another switch. So physically, I'm connecting the cable a certain way to make sure that the other parts of the network doesn't see that particular lab. And you do see that in R&D. You see that in government facility where they don't want most of the other employees to see what's on that part of the network. It's secret or high secret, right? So, and then you need to isolate systems sometime. And ideally, we don't want to connect all of these things. We use it for testing. We use it for repair. We use it for something like air gap is also important, removing the air gap. So from the physical standpoint, anything that has space and room or flexibility for someone to access, that means that there's air gap, and that creates a problem for us, right? Because potentially you might have a threat there. Virtual segmentation is regularly practiced for all companies because it's cheap. So you see this where you can set up a virtual private network, you can set up a VN, right? A virtual network, and you can use containers. So when you hear Docker and Kubernetes, those are containers that are often used in the cloud for virtualization. Okay. Then network segmentation, VLANs. Some of you took my CIS40A, we already talked about VLANs, right? Or if you took 26 at RCC, they talk about that. So you can configure and compartmentalize how your network is segmented, how your system is isolated. And you really need to think about how this plays into security, availability, integrity, and confidentiality. So that's our 3 goals. Okay. So the benefits of this is you're going to reduce attack surface. That's really, put out the fire before it starts. That's what we do. Limit the scope, and so that way you can be compliant. You can increase the availability and limiting the impact of the attack. So even though, people say it doesn't matter what you do in security, this is a highly demanded job, but ultimately you're not going to have 100% security, right? It's an endless task. But really, the less of an impact that I take, let's say that I'm only getting impact 5% compared to 95%, that's a lot better, right? So we can analyze and look at how the impact level would be if we implement certain solutions. And ultimately, we want to reduce that to acceptable level. And in my world, that's pretty good. Like if you can spend the money to make it acceptable, that's better than, not being able to make money at all. So that's ideal. So, and then we will have efficiency. So some of the things that we can do, right? Placing firewall, one time I went to a conference and there was a speaker and he said, in this world, it's always about we're buying a box, right? To protect another box. And that's true, right? We get an appliance, we put it somewhere in our network, and we would protect the rest of the network, right? But sometimes that's not necessarily going to reduce all your risk. So the things that we can use is a jump box. This is just a system. It could be a server. And this is where you're going to place it in a segmented area. This is used to manage that particular segment. So that way it can look at the access. It can look at some of the security issues. So you can put a jump box right here. You see? So I have the VPN devices here, right? And it's going to access the network through the VPN. And so basically it has to go through the jump box, right? For authentication purposes. So it's going to release the credential or the access rights based on their level of authentication to be able to access the rest of my network. And that's how it works, what the jump box is. So it's like the security guard, right, for your network after they come through your firewall, right? Okay, and it uses the remote access. So often that you see that they implement it for remote access, work from home. That's very popular right now. All right, so let's go through here. So the purpose of the jump box is that it's used to access. It can be a way for other system to access and manage devices that are in another security zone, such as DMZ, the militarized zone. So DMZ has the public front, right? That's where your web server, your database, anything that could be accessible to the public, you can put it there. That's gonna be in an area where you do have some firewall, but it's not on the inside of your network. So in order to go from that zone into your internal network, they have to go through your outside firewall and your inside firewall, right? Or another prevention system. So that way it's getting screened before it connects. So the users would connect to multiple jump boxes via VPN. So I would use VPN to connect to the jump box, and the jump box would look at my access capability and bring me into specific area of the network. And this is where you can manage policy, you can manage access control, and then send it to. So if I need to access the DNS in my company, right, I would connect to it via VPN. It's gonna bring me into the DNS where I can access the rest of my domain. So the big thing right now, what you see, and this ties back into some of the scripting, right? The shell, is that we can use a programmable network, right? All our routers and switches can be automated through programming. We can set it up where, it would be able to detect, right? Or install or do other things. So software-defined network is really a programmable network. It's a way that we can manage the network through programming and automation. So if you use it, what you can do is you can centralize your control. That means that we can overlook everything in an enterprise level through the SDN, through software application capability. And we can simply integrate APIs. All the tools that you've seen with, vulnerability analysis, threat analysis, all of them, most of them would have APIs. And so what that means is we can get access key for the API and then tie it into our applications that manages the network. So it becomes an additional extended feature that we can use in managing security for our network. So for example, I already have an SIEM, right? The security management system that I'm using, and I'm monitoring the system, but I also want an extension to be able to assess some vulnerability in like my endpoint devices. I can use an API for that. So I simply would install or add the API keys and be able to run the script to monitor those endpoint devices. Any question? Okay, so there is a class here. I don't know when we're gonna be able to offer it. It's 30B. It's been a couple years since I've taught it. It's Python for IT, and it really focuses on SDN. But I think I addressed it also in 30C. And we'll talk about what class I'm teaching next semester. So, all right, good. Okay, so here, network architecture, right? We know that there are your physical appliances, and then, some of your security appliances. SDN is on page 3. And then we get into virtualization. This is a really big operation right now for most company. The division for virtualization, it plays into IT really well in that, everybody wants to save money. So your containers, what you see, you guys already use Docker. I had written a lab for you to use Docker in the past, right? So what you did with Docker was you use a virtual machine and then you create a virtual environment inside the virtual machine. So it's double virtual, right? You can do it 3-level, 4-level, I think. So you're able to really use it to be able to manage it in a container. The benefit of this is you can specify it for its environment. So I can have a Docker that's different than another Docker, right? I can use a Docker to be able to manage my database and other things, my web app, where I have another Docker for other things. So you can use specific libraries, and there are different dependencies that's dedicated for that particular container and its objects. And then when you hear the term serverless, that is where we see FaaS, which is function as a service. We talked about this last week, right? Azure Functions, Google Apps Engine, Lambda for AWS. It doesn't have a complete application. They simply just run a function. And often you see that as a cloud service. All right, so let's go to the next part. So for the VDI, which is what we see quite a bit, you guys have used VDI all the time, right? When you create your virtual machine and access your virtual machine, you're accessing a VDI, virtual desktop infrastructure. This is used in the organization. It can be used as a virtual desktop, which is what you've been using. You can use it as a virtual servers, which we have configured before in another class. You can make it as a security appliance, sure, we can do that. And we can use it as a Docker, which you have done in the prior lab. So we can access the cloud, create a container, use that container for virtualization. Yes,
Wasn't Docker the one that had virus total and all those?
Yeah.
Was that one, right?
yeah, at the beginning. But you can, you can use Docker for the one that we're doing today. There's actually instruction in their documentation specifically for Docker, right? I didn't want to, and Docker is actually easier to set up because you just install Docker and then call it and then activate it, compared to run it on the VDI itself. But, so now you see a lot of applications and API that's able to integrate with Docker because it's very popular. So when you have that on your resume, right, like you explore it more and you learn how to use it, it's always beneficial because a lot of organizations use it in their infrastructure. All right, so for this, that leads us to number 6. How should an organization secure containers such as Docker or Kubernetes? Kubernetes, also very popular. It's kind of like Intel and AMD, right? These are some of the mainstream ones that you see. They are just systems, right? Whether they're virtual or not, it uses the same component as other computing system. So you would need to manage the container access rights, just like how we manage user access to the system. We need to monitor the system and services because we might run web services, we might run database services. All the things that we do on a regular system could be on a Docker or Kubernetes. So what you would see is that we treat it like another system. We need to update and patch applications in OS, and we need to go back and audit. So when we hear the term audit, that just means that we go back and do check and balance. We wanted to see if all the things that we intended to do was set and practice, right? Any questions? Okay, so let's talk about the next part. So this your book only mentioned a couple of things, and they, asset management is, I just when I went through the interview, I was talking is, like that's basically the IT management side of the house is to track all your devices and making sure all your devices is secure. That's why cybersecurity and IT is like the operation, right? So when you look at these tools, there are a wide range, and I put the free and open source ones here for you, so you can check those out. If you go into support, likely that you are going to use a support ticketing system, which is part of ITSM. Ticketing system allows us to track which system needs troubleshooting or which system is down, right? Not just we're scanning to see if which one is up and which one is down. It's a way that it encompasses how we manage all our resources, our assets in the infrastructure. So these are some of the tools that you see. For the government, they use CSAM. There's a paper on it, right? If you click the link, it goes over the information. Snipe It is a free, right? CIS8 is also a free one. GLPI is open source. SpiceWorks, I remember when they first came out, they are actually pretty cool. I went to a couple of their conferences. They're not as popular because I think they got bought out by someone, but they do a lot of the tools in the IT management and some security area. Yeah, they have a lot of free stuff. That's why. Yep. You can check IPs with it. So they have some pretty cool tools. So I would recommend you to check it out. So I put the link for you. And then there's an auditing tool. ERP Next is also very popular. So this field is about the tools and it really tells us about your skills when you put that on the resume, right? So I scanned through the resume and I'm going to look for like VMware, what kind of version, what kind of management tools you have, what certification you have. what knowledge you have in specific area of cloud. Do you know AWS? Do you know Azure? So what you see is, if you know it, you put down the information, right? If you don't know it, get to know it, because that's helpful. And asset tagging is just a way that we would track. Sometimes that they use a QR, sometimes that they use as, a barcode, sometimes that they manually type everything by name, right? Computer name and location. So it depends on the company. And this really is to protect the investment. Okay, so with that, for 7, in asset management, what are the benefits in asset tagging? It really, in my opinion and overall, I think it's really simplify how we identify systems for support and maintenance. And support and maintenance can encompass the security, right? While deterring theft. And that's on the physical threat side. Okay. And that is kind of like a broader umbrella of how we look at assets. But most, for its life, 3 to 5 years, we want to be able to track it, right? Making sure that people don't steal it, making sure that people don't damage it, and making sure that it's up and available. So another part of our world is also logging. And logging would record events, incidents, and activities that happens on our system, networks, and the overall infrastructure. I had done a little bit of Bastion on the Azure lab last week, and I took it out because when you set up Bastion and you don't manage it properly, and if it's public facing, you could impose yourself to external threats. So I took it off the lab, but you do see it. So you can create a Bastion host. What it does is it's a way that we can set up a connection for our system, and we can use it as a remote way to log or to record things, right? You can do it for other things. So on Azure, you can set it up a Bastion host for a remote connection. So this is a way that we can set up a remote log server. Why do we care about remote log server? Because if your server inside your network that's storing your log is being compromised, you do have something that's recording on the outside. It's kind of like I put surveillance system inside my company, inside the building. I also have a camera system on the outside to record what's going on, along with connecting to some of it on the inside. So you are able to centralize your monitoring and do performing analysis without jeopardizing a lot of the inside stuff. Okay, so that's good. So here it talks about Bastion hosts. So I recommend that you would have separate log servers. This is a way that we can see information about our system and then manage our device through CM. So the book, right, talks about Microsoft Endpoint Manager, but I already knew because I wrote a lab on Endpoint Manager a couple years ago and it went out. It was on its way out. So Microsoft now renamed it as an Intune. So when you click this link, it actually takes you to their new product. And then another one that you can use to manage and validate your system for the Apple side is called JAMF. It's hard to really find Apple management products because, proprietary as Apple, you would see. So there are companies that produce application for it. So JAMF Pro is specifically for iOS and Apple devices. Okay, because they use different technology and so on. So here, encryption. So the key thing that you need to remember about encryption, how you transfer your key and how you store your keys are essential. They're not going to try to break your encryption. They're going to go find your keys. That's essential, right? The passphrase to your keys is probably easier to find than reverse engineering the encryption itself, right? That takes too long and too much resources. And then when you got to think about when you decrypt data, where that goes, right? And then when you encrypt data, how encryption is used when your data is in transit, right? Is it stream? Is it, chunk based? Is it, what kind of algorithm you're using? What is the length of your key? How you store your key? Okay, certificates. So certificates are important. Certificates tie back to encryption and digital signature. It's a way that we would be able to implement some form of privacy or confidentiality into our files. So some of the things that you need to pay attention to, how your private keys and passphrase are secured, right? Do not share keys, do not share passphrase. That's just a practice. You should be able to revoke key. So when people leave the company, when people don't have a need to use it again, revoke it. You need to manage the life cycle of the certificate. So I've seen actually online banks and a lot of the company, right? If you ever access like SSL or TLS certificates online when you authenticate for banking or paying your bills, a lot of those certificates are never expiring because managing it is, but this can be dealt with in 5 lines of script, right? When, the 5 days before it expires, right? Notify the administrator and then reset the expiration date. So what you can do is you can close out some of the expired certificate, remove it, and then be able to generate a new expiration date for the new ones. So that's something to think about. So how should we manage encryption and digital certificates in the infrastructure? We mentioned that when you work with encryption, you want to secure your keys. You want to control decrypted data permission and transit. And for your digital certificate, you want to centralize your certificate authorities, which is your CA, to reduce problems in response to compromised keys or change of vendor's root certificate authority. So what that works is if you ever seen like those logo on website where it says this is trusted and signed by VeriSign, right? So VeriSign use a root CA, which is certificate authority, to assign certificates to users or entity that's using that service, which is tied back to the company. It could be like Bank of America, right? Or Visa, MasterCard, American Express. So what that does is sometimes their certificate authority would have modification in certificates, right? They might change up some things. So if you manage your CA and how your certificate authority talk to the vendor CA, you would be able to reduce the risk of people not having certificates or expired certificate or leaked keys, right? And then we want to manage the cycle of our certificates. So because without the certificates, people can't use web app, they can't use systems, they cannot decrypt their data. There's a lot of things that can go wrong. So most of the things that you use on HTTPS now have some form of certificate. Okay. And then in the next part talks about active defense. How can this help organization? Really, in active defense, and the term defense is a responsive tactic. That means that you can improve your posture if you fight back, or you fight before they fight you. So basically, you throw the punch before they hit you, right? So that means that we can control damage in an attack by countering adversaries. Now, this is a mixed bag for security professional. It kind of crossing some boundaries in ethics. So, we always preach to you guys about do not attack back when they attack you, right? because it's unethical, right? We don't sink to that level, let's say. But in the case where it's spreading, right? Let's say that you're being attacked and it's going from one segment of a network to the next. You need to combat, right? So what that means is that we need to apply countermeasure so that way we can stop the attack from spreading. Okay. It's kind of like, you know, that you're going to get more sick. You want to take some medicine, right? To kind of build your defense mechanism and your immunity to fight back the illness, right? So it is a way to control the damage, even if some damage is done.
So it's justifiable for someone ethical.
Right. But we don't fully attack them back like how they attack us, right? Like, so if somebody do denial of service and we know where they're coming from because we see the traffic coming in, we don't fight back like that. We don't fully attack them like how they attack us. Right. What we do is we would turn off, right, the services, we block the ports, right? We stop it from spreading, and then we modify the rules real quick. So what you're doing is you're countermeasuring. Now, there are companies that they truly believe in, you know, defending in another way, like the purple team people, the red team people. Sure, that's fine, right? That there are legal consequences in that sense. So you take that risk, and you know, it is really how the decision maker wants it to be. So if you have the resource to back it up on the legal side, do it. But my advice is just, you know, to contain is important. So that means that we have to do continuous threat intelligence, right? That means that we have to perform vulnerability assessment, ethical hacking. You have to do threat hunting, and then we have to really looking at countermeasure. You need to have an expectation that everything can go wrong, right? That's the way that we perform versus nothing can be wrong, right? It's a matter of when it's going to happen. It's not a matter of if it's going to happen. It will happen, just when. So if you can delay it a little bit longer, that's better. You're buying time. So we need to adjust control to meet the needs. Now, you know, we don't want to put up too many blockage where it creates, which slows down our network, slows down our service at the same time. So that's the really difficult balance for many organizations. Any question? This one. Yeah. Now, as we think about how we were able to see attackers, a good way to do this, I have mixed feeling about honeypots. I don't really like to utilize it for full-on live production type of environment. I think it's good to kind of understand potential attacks, but is it feasible to open that gate? So that can potentially, be bad. But yeah, you can set up honeypot. This is a way that we can capture attacker traffic. So basically it's a trap. We lure them to a certain area, and so we can see what kind of tools and techniques they're using. I think it's feasible to put it up for a period of time and then look at it and then look at how we would combat it. But if you continuously do it, you have to monitor it closely. Because if they find out that it is like this, if they can get to your network one way, it's another way that they're going to get in. So we can use it to implement appropriate tools and solution countermeasure. Cali has they used to have like a honeypot package that's called HB, and most of these are written in Ruby programming language. You're going to use one today that is part of another package, but I want to show you how you can install. It's really easy. And then we talked about cloud before. It should be B. Sorry, sometimes I. Okay, so how should cloud access security broker be used in infrastructure security? We talked about CASB before. When you look at Azure last week, when we set up, when you go from your dashboard into your portal, right? What you see is you do see an option where you can use third-party tools, or you can use something that comes with Microsoft. Sometimes it could be from the service provider where it's free, or sometimes you pay a very small fraction, like 20 cents for every hour, or every month or something like that. So this is a way that we can enforce the policy for your cloud resources. That could be your instance, containers, anything that you use on the cloud as a service. Any questions? Okay. So infrastructure, everything, right? All the systems, all the networks, all the areas, including our cloud services. Okay, so here kind of covers what we talked about last week: virtual private cloud, on-demand, semi-isolated environment. One of the things is that you should consider using private subnet, and then making sure that we have secure communication. So that means that if you need to remote in, use SSH, do not use Telnet. Or use some form of traffic that is protected, right? Don't make your traffic vulnerable or be open. And then there's some auditing information for you there. So if you want to look at your risk management tools. And then some of the control that we talked about before, right? That comes up again here. So this is what you've probably seen in 27 already, right? Preventative controls, detective control, and corrective control. So this is to stop an incident from happening, detect an incident and capture information, correcting, remediate an incident. So it is exactly what the definition of prevention, detection, and correction. Okay. Now, make sure that we know some example of it for certification, right? Like correction would be patching. And then I listed a bunch of stuff for you. So when we say host security, that's for the system, right? We patch, system hardening, and permission encryption. So this is a layered format where we don't just have one or two solutions, we have overlapping or overarching solution. And then policies. So for the next question, it asks you to provide 2 or more examples of preventative, detective, and correction control. So 2 things, right? Preventative, that's pretty easy. You can use a firewall to prevent someone from coming in, or a certain service to establish, block a port. You can also use preventative in the form of administrative. You can teach someone that there are threats out there, and what that could be, what phishing is like, what's malware, right? So those things, knowing beforehand would prevent them from, mostly, from be exposed to those risks. Your detective control, you can use intrusion detection system. That's its job. It's a form of network alarm, right? You can use actual physical alarm system, right? Like when someone entered the building, when it's locked, it sounds off. correction control, anti-malware application, patching. Okay. So correction means fixing. Anything that we fix falls under correction. Any question? Almost done with the questions. Let me move this up a little bit. So if you're done with the others, you'll be able to see. So the layered approach, you can just copy and paste it from the notes, or you can put down the ones that you like to note. We need to make sure we have strong authentication, right? Multi-factor preferred, or even better, that than using username and password. Host-based firewall, so like your Windows firewall, so those are application firewall. Host-based intrusion prevention system, so that's an application you install on your on that host. Data loss prevention, so that encompasses a lot of different things. That could be that we can make sure that we back up the data somewhere remotely. We can also encrypt the data, so data loss prevention would cover like many areas. Whitelisting and blacklisting, deny and allow certain things, could be ports, services, accounts, anti-malware and antivirus. So I think security software in general will be good here. Patch management and vulnerability assessment. System hardening, configuration and change management should also be on the list. Can I move this down so it's together now? Are we good? We got 13. Okay. So, then we talked about encryption, monitoring file integrity. So you can use hashing there, right? We talked about that in the past. We would manage logs. So check logs of events, and then physical access control. And so this is just for your host, which is like your system. Okay. And then we got the network, right? We got other areas. So now on the next part, it talks about the review of your infrastructure security. And in the analysis, you would have specific views. Okay. And they kind of fall into some categories like this. So for the question A15, it says examine occurrences of incidents, like looking at logs and events based on current and historical data. So when you do log analysis, logs are records of activities that's happening in operational system, right? Like your desktop, your servers, your endpoint devices, your network appliances, your bandwidth. So that's operational view. That type of view, when you're looking at logs and activity and occurrences, so the key term here is event-based of what's currently happening and what happened in the past. So that's operational. When you're looking at network diagrams to evaluate design and weaknesses, that's a logical view. It is not a physical view because it gives you the overall picture of how your network is logically laid out. So this is a logical view. Okay. So what we can do is we can look at the design and possibly see where the flaw is, and we can redesign it, right? We can implement segmentation. We can also, maybe change up IP scheming, add a VLAN. There's so many different things that we can do with the network to improve security. And then when you look at system configuration, settings, services, that's pretty easy. That's your technical view. Okay, so as an analyst, you're gonna see these areas a lot, right? Your operation, logical, and technical. So how can an organization reduce human error? Human is always the biggest factor in our case, right? Your end user. So what we can do is we can reduce the amount of input that they would have. So let's say that I would require the user to install something. Well, I can automate that, right? Because who knows, they might not do it at the time I want for all the system to be installed. Or, so there are different things that you see that can cause issues. So human errors can impact quite a bit in security. So we can automate the monitoring just to kind of detect the issues that they have to help with troubleshooting. And then we can constrain the interface. So I tell my former students this, don't give them the access, don't put the shortcuts, don't put the things on their desktop if they don't need it, right? Don't put the folder there if you don't want people to look. Just remove all the access points, the interface to some area that they might potentially access. Because people are curious. You put it there on the desktop, they're gonna open and see, right? Don't map the drive to their system if they don't have any business on that drive. So the network drive, you gotta just do inventory on it and make sure that, unmap it. So, because the problem is we create one image and then we deploy the image for everyone, assuming that everybody's the same, but it's not, right? So you kind of have to make modification and things like that for a specific area. And that takes time and resources, I think. And then you can implement procedure check for separation of duties. You guys know what SOD means? What's SOD means?
Segregation of duty.
Which is what? Which is what?
Separating duty across the organization for compliance and security prevention.
Like, can you give me an example? Let's say that I have a finance manager.
SOX Act.
Yeah, but
So the compliance and that would, that account payable and account receivable can't be the same person, it has to separate.
yeah, so that means that the person who's issuing the check to all the employees cannot be the same person who's receiving the check from other companies. You see what I mean? Because that there is a potentially a fraud case is that somebody can cash all the check that's coming in and send themselves a huge amount of check and then leave. Okay, because that happened in the past, right? So separation of duties is very important. And then there's other personnel procedures, right? Like background check. In our world, that's very common. Okay. Training and awareness program to make sure that they are able to detect not just system threat, but also people as threats, right? You see all of these cases now that a lot of the schools are going through, like, identifying, active shooter, potential harm that can cause other students, cyberbullying, stuff like that. So I think the more knowledge people have, the easier it is for us on our end, where you don't have to manually do a lot of things. But people will also be able to point out some of the issues that they're facing as well. And that will help you. Right. So for activities in overall maintenance, so once we design a solution, we implement it, right? And it needs to be layered security, right? Defense in depth, that, whatever it is, when you leave this program, you need to remember that. That means that there are many different areas that you need to integrate into your security solution, your security plan, okay, for your business continuity. So we need to do schedule reviews, and this is compliance based for most part, right? But we also need to do it depending on your business mission as well. continual improvement process. This is known as CI or CIP. So in the master level, we write these things. A lot of it, policies, CIPs, procedures, business continuity plan, that's related to IT. And then also, when you get rid of processes, when you no longer do certain things or use certain rules, you want to make sure that you retire it through a process, right? That means you gotta document how you're gonna retire these things, for how, when, and then, then you don't need to maintain it. So you gotta document it. All right. I think for a lot of the content in this is higher level, right? You gotta think from a management perspective. But, because analysts contribute to the decision-making process quite a bit in how we are able to identify issues and address the issues. Okay, so that takes care of chapter 7. If you have the book, I recommend you read through it. In the text, it has like little tips for exam, like it will say, oh, CYSA doesn't ask for this, but you should know this for practice. Or it would say CYSA will ask for this, right? So those are little important tips. And then also practice question at the end. Okay. So I added a lot more onto your notes, like stuff about users, authentications, data validations, some design things, and then, like the overall network. So sometime you would, when you redesign or when you integrate security solutions, sometimes you have to put together a topology to illustrate that. Okay, so let's talk about the lab next. I uploaded a few times because I did have some correction. So I was, debating and rethinking on how I originally want you to do a little bit more on the attack surface. But what, I kind of like the book idea and how they use the cheat sheet, but what I want to show you is there is a resource on how you can perform attack surface analysis. When you go here, there are lots of cheat sheets that you can use. As an analyst, this is very useful because we have template and procedure things laid out for you already. You just need to go through and kind of follow it. Okay. So if I need to do like cross-site scripting prevention, I can go here, right? So for attack surface analysis, this is specifically focused on application and web application. So it walks you through on what it is, right? And help you understand what kind of things you're going to be looking for, right? Looking at your code, thinking about how you would be able to look at defense in depth. And then, if you're using cloud applications, they also have threat mapper and scope. So they give you recommendation on what to use. So this is very helpful. Okay. This is nice. And then some of the tools that you would see for attack surface, you got ZAP, which comes with Kali, but when you're using other Linux, you have to, and then we'll come back to this. I actually use this in one of my Python class before and Skipfish. So you can take a look at some of these tools. And then threat modeling. So that's just giving you some resources that you can think about. So the purpose in this is because I asked myself, I was like, how are they going to be able to attack something if they don't have anything to attack, right? So I'm going to teach you how to set up a test environment where you can actually put up a vulnerable web application where you can attack it yourself, okay? Yeah, there are websites that they put up for you to attack, but if you can do it yourself, why do you rely on other people's resources, right? Because what they're doing is they're studying however you're attacking. That's why they put up those things. So we're gonna use DVWA. This has been around for ages, right? If you search for it, it's everywhere. There are like 10, 20 different ways to set this up. And everybody uses things differently. So you can do this on any Linux machine. That's fine. You can also download PHP on Windows side and set up IIS and be able to do it, but Apache works the best on Linux. So PHP MySQL, mostly it's open source, right? And then you're going to be able to set up your own. So basically, you're gonna put up a web server, a database with a web server, and there you go. You have a web application already. Okay, as long as you have a user account to be able to access it. Okay, so what you're gonna do is you are going to, if you don't have Kali Linux, you can download it, get the virtual machine. If you have it on your drive, you can open it, and then you're gonna log in. Sorry, I already have my things tested earlier, so. Then you're gonna open up your terminal. So we're logged on as Kali. Let me close this. Let me save it. So I can transfer it later. And then what you're gonna do is you are going to so I went to their documentation. I was like, what is the best way to do this? Because I don't want to beat around the bush and look at all the other stuff, right? Because I have my own way. I want to see what's the best way. And like 5 things later, I'm like, oh, there's a better way. But yeah, and because they had set up like a YouTube video. I spent 30 minutes watching through, and I don't think, you know, the person who was doing the video was somewhat okay, but there was like extra steps that you don't need. Anyway, so we are going to access this directory var www.html. If you ever set up web server before, if you were in my other classes, you remember that when we do IIS, we have that www.folder for the public. This is where you put all your web page file in, your HTML file, right? So all the web servers out there, they have a container, a folder where they put all the HTML file, like index.html, about.html. This is what you see when you visit on their landing page, okay? So that's where we're gonna go. And you can copy and paste on Kali. I had given my 27 class my virtual machine of Windows, and I didn't enable the copy thing. They were complaining about it the other day. They were pretty cute. They were like, oh, I can't copy and paste. I have to type everything. I said, oh yeah, it's okay. It's PowerShell. You can overcome it. PowerShell, you need to type. All right, so once we're in the directory, it shows on the path right here. What you're gonna do is you are going to pull the repo, or you're gonna do a git clone, right? If you're using other Linuxes, you have to install git, and then we want to use it as sudo because it's gonna say, oh, you don't have permission to save it into this directory. So we are gonna clone it, and it's gonna ask for our password. And I already had done it prior, so this is what I get. You might get a little bit more, right? Oh, you did?
It says fatal, unable to access statement, did not result in.
All right.
You have a little squiggly line at the end of HTML. You might have to type it in because I have the same thing.
Squiggly line.
Oh, which stuff are you referring to?
The git clone.
Yeah, the git clone number 3.
Yeah, to me when I pasted it, I had a line at the end. After a while, when I started typing it.
Like this, I paste it fine.
What's at the end of it?
Oh, you getting like this, right? Oh, it's already exists, so if you already had it, it's there already.
Mine doesn't say this. What is it added to? Is it in- Is it added to?
No, I just typed in manually. So it says, it doesn't translate over to.
Are we okay with the cloning? Make sure it's HTTPS. Get clone, random storm, make sure that you have it in the paste like this. It should be fine. Sometime if it's, they could limit on how many people accessing it to them.
Putting it down again. I could swap.
No. You should be able to do it, but let me see. Yeah, this is their page, because you're supposed to use XAMPP. You can try a DigiNinja like this. You can clone from this one too. Can you see that? They might have moved a different repo. Yeah, they're different repos, so you can clone it from here. It's the same file. It's the same developer, they have different develop repos.
Also had an error number 12 for Q1. It said that the operation wasn't permitted and there was several lines of code from the,
I tried that one. Doing something.
yeah.
You couldn't get cloned?
I tried
That's-
that one.
That's weird.
Am I the only one that had to say that? Did you have it? You got the answer? Okay.
Oh, for 5? For each mod?
Yeah.
Dash R, capital R? Did you go to this? Did you do this?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I just did it like right before class to double check it. It should be fine. See if you can do it at the root level. So if you guys can't clone, do sudo su. Like this. And then you can do sudo git clone. Or you don't even need sudo if you're at root. Yeah, I can't reclone it because it's already there, so.
Yeah, it could be in the same area.
Is she just trying to terminate like this or it's already in the directory?
Yeah, HTTPS, you're unable to access HTTPS git. Could not resolve post GitHub document. It's saying that it can't even connect to GitHub.com. Yeah, do sudo, or, yeah, sudo app update,
Or app update because you're on a root already. That's right.
sudo app update.
Yeah, you can just do app update because you're on this root. Okay, so you said step 5 is not achievable? Yeah. You should be able to. If you're in, oh wait, let me see. Yeah, I gotta change this. So we are going to modify, so basically we copy. We change the name of the capital DVWA to the lowercase DVWA.
That's if you clone it, right?
You have to clone the repo. You can't run it without the application.
Also, we got, oh,
Yeah, if you didn't successfully clone this, you don't have the application.
got the,
Yeah,
just for the. That part.
but see, that means that you're not able to connect. What about if you guys also turn off your firewall? I don't think the firewall matters though, because Mike has the firewall and I did turn it off yesterday when I tested some stuff, but. Yeah, so open your browser and see. I think it might be, yeah, and then type in like github.com or something. Yeah, I think it's your internet connection on it, so. Just restart it. Yeah, just reboot it. Yeah, if you couldn't clone, I think it's internet connection. All right, so once we change it to the lowercase name, then you are going to do a chmod here. Okay. Yeah, if you can't do it, you can try using root. You can do sudo su. I've tested these steps multiple times, so it should not,
So you're
right?
like, I'm making
I'm like,
sure.
yeah, I was like, I gotta make sure that they can do this. Because yeah, basically you are able so to change permission on it. So because you gotta do read, write, and execute on it. Also making sure that we're in the right directories. Okay. And then once you do this, so everything has the configuration file, you are gonna recopy, just like we did it before. We don't want to modify the configuration file for it. We want to copy it and then modify the copy version. In case something goes wrong. Oh. Sorry, I forgot to go here. Skip a step. But you gotta be in. Anybody still have problems?
Yeah, now I went there, so yeah, sudo.
Yeah. So if you're rejected because it says permission denied, do sudo su.
Now, did that just elevate the privilege of the event?
To root, yeah.
Right.
So if you change you modify the rights, maybe at the root level, it's gonna allow you to, because this is system-based file, so that's why sometimes you can't just be a regular user. So once I copy the configuration file, right after I change it to the directory, I'm going to go in and modify the configuration file by editing it. Okay, so when you do this part, you're already at root, so I wrote the instruction with Kali and Kali user in mind, but doesn't matter. So this is the file that you're gonna see, the PHP file, right? What you're gonna go is you're gonna use your arrow down, you're gonna move down to where you have the, because it tells you here, it says, the DB user, you're gonna make it test user. So go down on the file to the DB user, which is like a few line down. And then for the DVWA, you're gonna take that out. And you put test user. Like this. And then go to the next one. And then you're gonna do password like this. So what we did was we did this step right here. So after you run this command, it's gonna take you to this file. And then you just use your arrow key to go down to this line, modify the user account, and then the password. So think of this as like settings for the server. And since we're going to use MySQL, are you okay? You're able to clone or no? Just re-download Kali and unzip it. Yeah, it might be that one version somehow got certain things turned off, and you don't want to spend like all the rest of the time trying to fix it.
Firewall thing that you were talking about.
Oh yeah, so you should do yeah, you have to do UFW disable. Yeah,
In the power.
in the terminal, yeah. And then if you're on as Kali, you do sudo UFW disable and you turn off the firewall. If you're on as root, you just do UFW disable. Okay, so once we modified this, we're gonna save by Control X. And then we save it yes, so Y, and then enter. So if I rerun that, right, I told you guys that you go down to the DB user. And we want to change this to test user. And the database password is password. You can make it whatever you like, but. And then we are going to do, we're gonna save it, so Control X. And then yes. So that's what we did here. Then after this, if you're on as root, you don't have to use the sudo, but you are going to install the default SQL server or MySQL server. So it's for your database. And because it's damn vulnerable web, right? You have to have a way to access it as a user and access the database. So it's a complete application. So I already installed it. So it shows this, but it might take you a couple minutes or a few seconds. So what we're going to do is we are going to access the system as a super user on the MySQL. So you're going to do a sudo MySQL, right? And then we're going to go to root. So I'm already in its root anyways, but. And then it will ask for the password. And it's going to take you to the CLI. So it runs MariaDB in the back, right? As it is a type of database. And then what we're going to do is we are going to, so I think for our Kali, it does not like using the loopback like this, even though it sees it. What you can do is you can replace it with the, its IP address here, right? Ideally, it should be able to see it as a loopback like this. sometime if this doesn't work, you can also modify it to its IP. I think it's 10.0.2.15 is the IP. So I'll try that, okay? And what you're doing here is you are using the CLI in the command line, and you are going to make a user called test user for your server, which is your local host. And the password for authenticated once it's identified is password like this. Because it's damn vulnerable, so we don't really care about a lot of the security measure here, but you can definitely create it otherwise. So once I'm in the CLI like this, so when you run this command, basically you're accessing the SQL service, right? And it's using MariaDB, and then it's gonna open it up like this. And if you don't know, you can type help like this. And then it tells you like some of the CLI command. So remember the FTP one? We did something like this where we see the CLI. This is like that for the database. So your data, you have a database server right now on your Linux. So we're gonna paste this. Oh, ahead of myself there. So I don't think, does it let me? Yeah. So instead of using this, let me try it with the other IP.
Professor, when we do the system CTL status MySQL.
System control?
Yeah, how do we exit from that?
You would do Control D. Yeah. I think you can type by with the capital B. Most of the CLI use that. You can try by with the capital B or Control D. Get you. Yeah, Control D. If you press Control D on your keyboard, it should exit the CLI.
This is that. Yeah.
Really? It should take you out. Hold on 1 second. So I'm here, right? I'm at step 16. I'm done with the CLI. I need to come back to my terminal. Whenever you see this, you have to be back in terminal. So after the grant access like this, right? Let's see, Control D.
We're gonna go step 12 right here.
Oh, step 12. Oh, to do the service start right this? Yeah, so you can just open another terminal. You don't need to exit it out. It actually activated, you can close it. It's already activated your SQL at that point. So when you do this, basically you asking the system for the status of the SQL, and you should see your SQL running, right? This is actively running. So you can, at that point, you can close your terminal and then reopen your terminal.
So in that case, I would need to do the sudo again? Or
Yeah, to be back in root. Otherwise, you'll be back in Cali. And you should be fine for most part, because on the next one, even if you're in Cali, you should be able to do sudo MySQL and elevate it to root privilege. How are you doing? Okay? Okay. Did you download the virtual machine?
Yeah, just downloaded Cali Linux again.
Okay. Just post that. And reopen your virtual box. It's gonna remember you gotta remove it. And what you do here is right click this, remove only, yeah, just do remove and then remove only. You unzip it. Also remove this. see the downloads folder? It's good now, because sometimes it doesn't like having another one of the same name. It's scared of the teacher. It's scared of the teacher. Okay, so everybody got that? So once you are in the Maria DBCL, you're gonna see like the shell like this, right? You're gonna put in the account information, like create the user, grant the privilege, and then when you need to get out, you press Control D. It's to get out. But for step 12, you can close and reopen your after you run the SQL status, right? I'll make a note of that.
I think done with that, can you stay on the Maria DB menu so I can see the
Yeah.
map?
So 15 and 16 is for the CLI in the database. Right? So I ran this and it opens up my database. I type in help just because I wanted to see what's there. But I did create user, test user, password. I put my IP address, but you can definitely use the 127. It should take it. Right. And then I also, bless you, I also put grant privileges and for that user on that system.
Professor, it's by, and what's the one preceding it?
Oh, this,
Yeah.
when I press Control D,
Oh,
it exit, it tells me bye.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, when you need to leave, supposedly you can type exit, but when I tried it before, it didn't work. So Control D is to terminate it. And it's gonna tell me bye when you press Control D to get out of Maria DB. So in this lab, you learn how to set up a database server, right, with your Apache server. We learned Apache in the past with FTP, but this is, a full web app, so. Okay, good. Then once we exit, we can come back to our terminal and then you should do an update. So I'm back here to my root. And it will take a few seconds. Then I'm going to install all the additional things. Remember that when we talked about, when you're using web apps, you often see certificates. This is when you see it here. So for HTTPS, it uses SSL TLS, right? And SSL TLS requires certificates for the web. So this is where you see it. And I already had it installed, but it will install there. Now I highlighted this right here because it is a complete command, okay? There's a pipe, so you could do one separate here and the other following, but this is a one complete command. So after I install the CA certificates, I'm going to use wget, which is where I'm going to access this web page to be able to obtain the GPG trust package for my PHP. And it tells me here that, remember we talked about trust, right? It tells me here that it did save this, and it is a file that we need to obtain for trust from GPG. This is used with the web encryption, okay? Then we're gonna do an echo, and this is basically allows us to do the DEB for, we're gonna pull it for this particular version of Linux, which is Buster, right? They build it on the Buster release. And then we are going to create a php.list file. So this last one is a complete one, even though it looks really long. Oops. Go here. And so we append this, right, to the .list file. I modified this step a little bit because in the past I had used older extension. So here I'm going to, I followed their documentation. So in order to get the full damn vulnerable web to fully work, right, you have to have Apache 2. You already seen MariaDB server, client, PHP, MySQL, CLI, PHP-GD. So all of these extensions need to be in place for this entire thing to work. Right? Yours should not say cannot, unable, when it says unable to locate packages, that's when it's outdated. So let's say that you do this again months from now or next year, you are going to update the packages, right? As I try to run some of my old commands and it didn't work because the older stuff already deprecated, they stopped supporting it. So, you know, you have to go in and find. And the best way is to look at the documentation. Okay, so we did this for 18. So after I have this now, you already know that we did Apache in the past, so it's already there. But what you're gonna do is once you install Apache, you are going to go into this. So this is a full web server with a PHP file, basically. You know, I have programming students that ask me like, oh, how do I do this? It's really easy, right? You just need to run a few commands and then turn on your Apache 2 and then enable PHP. And you can use your PHP to display content for your website too, which is what we're gonna be doing down the line. So here, right now, currently, we're using 8.2 PHP for Apache 2. So down the line, you will have to make this adjustment for the version, because if they don't have it anymore and you have something else, if you download something else, it's not going to work. Okay, so make sure that this is relevant to what you have in the repo or in the folder that you downloaded. Okay, so now I'm accessing this directory, which is Apache 2, and inside it is this file, php.ini. If you might have seen any file before, this is a way that it's like a type of configuration file. A lot of the times it's for like system and server. So ini file is common in Windows environment, sometimes on the older system. So what you can do is you can go in and modify how it's connecting, what kind of things should be accessing it, things like that. So in Linux servers, a lot of the times for Apache, you just simply use like a text type of file, just like what we saw in the configuration file earlier, kind of like that. You can go in and you can modify it. So when I run this command right on here, I gotta make sure I'm in the right directory. It's gonna open up my ini file. This file is very lengthy, right? If you look down here, it tells you that you can use the shortcut keys to be able to search. So we can do a Control W to search. And all you have to do is type in the keyword that we want to use here, allow underscore URL. So I'm gonna do allow underscore URL. It's gonna take you to here, but we're not modifying this one, it's already on. We're modifying the include. So move your arrow down to this part and then change off to on. So after when you search, it's the second line after where it lands, and then you're gonna modify the toggle to on. And then after that, you're gonna save, so Control X, Y for yes, and then press enter. So we want to include URL that turns on. Now, in the case where if you want to modify your PHP server for other things, what you can do is you can go down, you see, they already comment some of these out. And if you read the comment, it tells you like, you know, how the server socket should time out, what kind of ports, things like that, what max size file. So you can go in and you can modify some of this for your configuration. Okay, so Control X and then press enter. So again, what I did was I accessed the PHP INI, I pressed Control W to search, and then I search for allow underscore URL like this. It's gonna take me to that location, move down to the next entry, and then change that to on instead of off. So retype on, and then save, Control X, Y, and enter. Yeah.
For 23, we're having issues that, like, after putting the civil service, I've had to start, and it's not, I was like, 19. Yeah, 19, it's not showing the display the list.
There's no such file or directory.
This right here? Did you do this part? I'm in it. So you must have skipped. $19 is this. Did you do this one? 18?
Yeah.
Yeah, it should pull. Once it's installed, it opens the package.
I even did it again. And same thing happened.
So what you do is you go, okay, you can do CD/etc or CD etc, and then do ls to see if PHP is there. If it's not there, it didn't install correctly. It might have thrown an error when it installed, like unable to locate package, and you didn't see it. Yeah, so that means it didn't install. So you need to install, so do the update, right? And then you don't need to do this part because I think this is for the certificate for itself, but you need to install Apache 2, right? All of this. This is the one entire thing. And read what it's telling you when it's installed. If it says unable to locate package, that just means that it's not able to pull the install file from the Git.
The only thing of value is at the end it says package the MySQL I have no installation candidate.
Yeah.
I think you got that too, right? Goes through.
You can close that when you open your.
But there's no key to get out of this?
Yeah, well, it's just showing the status. It's gonna be live all the time, so that way you see it, the server's running. Yeah, just open another terminal. Or you can close. This is a virtual package provided by PHP 8.2 MySQL. Package building. I mean, you can do one at a time. You can do sudo apt install Apache 2 and then we have the server, something, yeah. And then you have to answer yes. We have to go through it. Yeah, it's already, the information is done, the patch is already this, or so that's down. Server. I think the only one that it didn't do is this, is the MySQL. Yeah. You test this one, I think it's already there. Yeah, it says there, right? Yeah, I think it's that one. Yeah, see, that's the one. So seal app install.
Where's my super high each?
Yeah, so you might have to put in the rest of the license. See that? So you, and you have the client one, right? PHP? Yeah, so.
I got this, there's server.
It's, yeah, the server's different than mine, so check all of them. I think your SQL is not there. If you ls and it's not in the directory, I recommend that you check. So Apache might be there, but your PHP is not there. That's the problem. If your PHP is not there, then so you won't have 8.2. So if you do cd etc and you do an ls, and if this is not, the folder is not there, that means that your PHP did not get installed. Okay, so once you have modified your INI file, you're gonna start your PHP or your Apache service, restart it at least. And then you are going to open up your browser. You can type in localhost or 127.0.0.1 or the IP address that you use. It should load like a Debian page, which is the default page. Yeah.
Number 16, once I enter this, how do I enter all this in here?
Oh, yeah, so you need to get out, Control D. And then now you're back to tally, so if you wanna be at root, you gotta do sudo. Okay, so after that, what we're gonna do is we are going to, so I already ran the services. I start the Apache, right, which is my web server. And then what I'll do is, if you don't have a login, it's okay. You can skip 25, okay? But the whole point is to be able to have you interact with the application, but if the application is running, you can scan against it. So the whole point is if you, let me see if I can get to it. So I open up my browser and then I can go 127.0.0.1, right? It should load like this. Now, ideally, if you go to, if your damn vulnerable web works, right? BAW. Like this, it should take you to an authentication. So mine works. You see that? So you can type in your 127.0.0.1 and then if you did everything correctly, when you get to this directory on the browser, it should load this. So the whole point is that, you know, we can add in it log us in here. You can log into, this is your application right now, your web application. And then if you go to each section, it talks about like how you can do injection, there's security, PHP information, all of that. Cool. So that's how you know that your server, your web app works. Let me try with my other IP. I don't think I activated with my other IP. Yeah, it sees it. It sees it as well. So you should be able to use 127.0.0.1/DVWA. And it looks like that. Okay, so that's the first part. So now you know how to set up your DVWA, right? Damn vulnerable web app. And then you don't have to do this, because if you didn't fully set all of this up, sometime it doesn't let you, but it automatically logs me in already earlier, so. And then for this part, I just want to show you how you can add in a page, right? Like you can make a text file and be able to do this. So I'm going to leave this optional for you from 26 through 32. It's not part of the DVWA, so you don't have to do this part. Let me highlight it in a different color. Okay. Then the second thing is I think you've done a little bit of ZAP before. But here, when we talked about proxy attack in analysis a couple weeks back. So what we can do is we can revisit this. And we want to look at how we can use proxy or Z attack proxy, which, you know, we learned in the past. So this is another way that we can analyze web app. And when you run this, it's going to give you the graphical user interface. So all you have to do is you can go here to Kali. One way that you can open is you can do OWASP, right, -ZAP like this, right? And it's going to tell you to install like this, or you can go to the all application, which is the dragon icon. And then you're going to go to web application analysis. Oh, actually, it's not installed. I read that it's installed. Well, I guess we have to do this. So yes. So I'll edit that right here. This is not, I guess Kali doesn't have it anymore. I thought that Z was there. Okay, so open terminal. And use command to open to install ZAP. Sudo app install. Sudo OWASP-ZAP. So I added this. once you install it, right, you would be able to have it here. It should go into, yeah, web application analysis. It should add it right here. So this is a very simple interface. It's gonna show like this. So the whole point in this is it's gonna scan with the target. So once you have this open, and I'm in part B now, right after I install, so make sure we install. You probably don't, it's not equipped with Kali. I thought I read the documentation, they said they have it. But you can pull it, and then once you install it, it's under web application analysis. It should be the last one on the menu because it's C, right? And then you open up the GUI and you're gonna select the first option. So I'm gonna explain that right now. So here are your options. Yes, I want to persist the session with the name based on the current timestamp. So they see you. I want to persist the session, but I want to specify the name and the location. So you can modify it where you can mask some of it. No, I do not want to persist the session at this moment in time. Remember my choice, do not ask me again, right? So I'm gonna let it be open, and then we're gonna click start. So it's gonna open up the session, and it's gonna tell you that these are some of your add-ons that you can select. Okay, so depending on what you need, so if you want to look at the quick start, they give you the link on how to go use it. They do a great job. They actually have videos on how to go from the beginning to end. So look at their documentation. They're one of the fewer documentation that gives you a very clear detail. Okay. Now, so what I don't need, if I don't need any additional stuff, I can go here, and in this, what you're gonna see is you're going to select this option, which is run automated scan against your application. Okay. And then when you scroll down, you are going to be able to put in the URL. Remember that we activated our web app for a reason, so we can scan against it. And so the whole point in this is to be able to get you to attack your test system, right? By activating your test system and then running a tool against it. So that way you learn how to do web analysis, web application analysis. Right? And then you can go and add the sites. If you don't have the sites, you can add in the URL. So to add the sites, you're going to click the plus sign, right? And then it would be here. So your website, you can type in the URL that you want to attack. So http://127.0.0.1 like this, right? And then if you want to add the extension, then vulnerable web app. And then select, I'm sorry, yeah. And it's not started until you tell it to start, right? So once we set everything ready to go, you just click attack and it's gonna go. See? Boom, it's gonna do get request. So you're gonna see something like this. Sorry, it's just formatted. All right, we're better there. And then when you want to stop, you can click stop. So I need a screenshot for this.
That's a DOS?
It's what it does is it's sending a bunch of requests to my server. So not a true DOS, but it's just testing against the web application that we just put up. Yeah, the ones
Does
that we've been.
work like that where it's a bunch of
Yeah. So yeah, it can. So it's so you see how it's getting and posting.
Mhm.
It's seeing if it can add data to it and then communicate with it at the same time. So this is what happens when you connect to your web servers in the back. That's what we see, right? Like when you accessing YouTube or when you're doing social media, basically you're doing a get, a post, right? A post is when you like, when not just thinking about picture, but when you add text or fill out a form. You get is when you visit a page. So I'm attacking my own server right now, and that's that. And I'm happy that I got you guys this far, because 3 a.m. this morning, I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get all of this in for them.
You're starting off on the computer.
Yeah, I'll be happy tomorrow, because it's Thursday. I got Friday my info session for data science, and I'll be done for,
Nice.
Yeah.
You get a break.
yeah. I'm looking forward to Saturday.
What are you gonna do?
If it doesn't rain, I might go down to Orange County, maybe go to the beach or something.
Ramadan starts.
Oh, yeah, I heard. Yeah. That's in a lot of religion too. In Christianity, they fast.
Yeah, it's just like not for as long, right?
Yeah, not for us. Islam, and then, and the Catholics, like my family, they're Catholics. You could eat fish. It's just you can't eat
Is that for
meat.
Lent?
Yeah, for Lent.
Is it like once a week or something like that? Or-
Most people, they observe it for the whole season, and
Okay.
then, but you have to give up something,
Right.
right? I'm gonna try to give up complaints. Like, I'm gonna try to complain less.
I remember when I was in high school, my history teacher, she gave up soda and she was very cranky. And she would come in every morning with a large Coke, like a really big Coke, in the morning, and she gave it up. She was so crazy. Like,
Yeah.
"Dang, I didn't know. sugar affects you."
Well, caffeine and sugar,
Yeah.
yeah. So when you see the code like this, 200 is okay, 500 is error, right? Or internal server error, and then 400 is, like the error that you see that it cannot connect to the server. So you would see the status. So this is using a spider like a system where it crawls through and it generates the request.
Where's the start?
It's a tab. Are you on it? Yeah. Yeah, so you close this. And then you put this one, you can expand this. One of the buttons.
Oh, it's dark.
Yeah.
Wow.
No, it's just the way to design it. Yeah, put that, and then you put in your 127.0.0.1. You are attacking yourself. And you can let this run a little bit, and you can proceed with the other section, which is, so after you scan, and then you can enter. Yeah, you can use like this, or you can use their interface, and then you can do Honeypot. This should be one word, but I was in a hurry. So Pentbox is another area that you can use for, so I'll proceed while it's scanning. I have multi-core, so I'm gonna try to use it. Yes, it's not letting me. So I guess we can stop. So what you have is you are going to have the result from this, and you can export it out, right? You can also look at the history. So it's gonna store it into a folder like this, right? All the targets folder.
So for this, we obviously need to have our Apache thing going on, right?
So it has to have a database. So then vulnerable web has to have some form of database, because web access is to be able to access some kind of content. And then Apache is the web server side of Linux. We did Apache 2 in the past. Yeah, this is the second time we use Apache 2, so. All right, so once you get to like kind of halfway, you can stop it, and it's gonna store the information here. You would see the status down here. You can also search, you can set alert, you can restart, you can look at requester, all of that. Right, and then analyze. Okay, so I'm done with this part. take a screenshot, close ZAP, and then we're gonna do the honeypot. I think it's, mine is like lagging, because I was too proud of it, I guess, earlier, saying that it was. Now it's like, oh, see, shutting down, say, okay, so it takes a little bit of time to close, so just be patient.
Patience is the name of the game.
I know, but sometime when I could close 3 times and it's not closing, I'm like, what's wrong with it?
I have a lot of urges lately, just wanting to smash my laptop and throw it around.
No, don't do that. That's
I'm
too
never-
expensive. Especially on a MacBook.
I know.
All right, so once we take a screenshot of ZAP, right, so you get the idea of how to use it. I recommend that you look at the quick guide. It's really good. You watch their video. It's gonna explain a lot more than I give you the Cliff Note version of things. But learn how to use it. It's really cool. All right, so now we're gonna do sudo su. We are going to put in our Kali Linux password to move on to part C. And then we're going to do a git clone. So if you're at root level, I think you should be able to clone fine. If not, you can do sudo git. Okay. So we clone the Pentbox, and then we are going to access the directory after we had. Sorry. Let me close the, yeah, let's come back here. Okay, so I'm in Pentbox after I clone the repo. And then I'm gonna unzip by using tar or extract files, I should say, and not unzip. Unzip is a different application. Okay, so once you extract it, it's gonna look like this. So it's gonna open up all the files. Then you are going to list. I'm not sure about this version. Let's check it. So let's check it. LS. Yeah, it is 1.8, so we're good. So you are going to open it up and then list its content. You can also do a pipe there. So it tells you that in the directory or in this file and its content, it's going to be like this. So there are the tools option. So what we'll do is we are going to run Pentbox RB. It is a Ruby tool, so you can see it's .rb. And then it's gonna look like this. And all you have to do is select option 2 by pressing 2 and then press enter for network tools.
Is the attached page supposed to pop back up when you put it in the browser?
Yeah. Yeah, because it's just telling you that, oh, I'm the server, I'm here. Look at me. Yeah. And then, so after you got into Pentbox 1.8, you're going to select network tools, and it tells you there is denial of service tester. That's one option that you can use. TCP port scanner, it's a sniffer. Honeypot, which is option 3, you can use fuzzer. Pentbox is great. I love it. And then DNS host gathering, and then the MAC address geolocation. So there are some tools there. So you are going to select Honeypot for 3 and then press enter. And then it's going to tell you there's 2 options, auto configurations or manual configuration. Unless you want to change major thing, then you choose 2, but we're going to choose 1. Okay. And then it is activated. So once you do that, what's going to happen is you are going to use port 80. So your traffic is in port 80 and it's using that to attract bad traffic. We have a vulnerable web app and we have a honeypot. What else can we do to open up holes in the security? Huh? It says port in use. Oh yeah, because it's probably using it for request stuff still when we were doing the scan. So yeah. But did it say that on your thing?
Mine didn't.
Oh, mine didn't. Mine took it. But it's probably still using it for other things like your scanner. Because when you do HTTP requests, it's still port 80 or 8. Yeah. And then if you want to exit, you just simply press 8 and so after yeah, so let me see. Let me see if I can. Yeah, port 80 is gonna give you this, right? This is the default page because we had activated Apache. But what happened is when people, let's say that this is real, right? And the public address is real. And once you turn on your honeypot with that public IP address or your server, whatever that they use there, when they connect, that's how you're gonna see. So that's what honeypot does. It lures people into usually it's just web front. So yeah.
You can tell it's running how?
I'm sorry,
Can you tell it's running how it's running?
go back to your terminal.
Uh-huh.
Let me see, I have 5 open. Yeah, so once you turn, let me see, I did. So mine is not, it's just error ports in use because I had used it for Apache, so I couldn't, it didn't activate it. But let's say that I used Apache with another port, right? Like port 8080 instead of 80, then it will activate it. It will say that it's on. Okay, so our honeypot is not activated for that port. Then you can configure at this point, then we can't do the fast configuration. We might want to go through option 2 and then specify the port that you want. So let me see. We're gonna do option 2 and then we can do 3. Let's do number 2. Insert port to open. Let's do 8080. I think my 8080. In false message to show you are trapped. Save the log for the intrusion. Yes, so I'm using manual configuration right now. You can put in the port and then the default other log. So you can find the log information here. That's what it says, right? Is the name the default? So we can say test 1. Accept beep sound for the intrusion. Yes. So whenever somebody's intruding, it's gonna go beep. Honeypot activated. So now we're done. So I chose option 2. You just gotta set the port. You put in like what kind of message you wanted to show them when they got into your site. If they're attacking that, right? And then you want to activate whether you want it to sound or not. And then now your honeypot's activated. So,
How do you exit from them?
you would, let me see, 0 to go back. It says that here. I don't know if you can go that level.
8 to exit.
Yeah, or 8 to exit, but I was in a different menu. Yeah, if you see the little arrow, you just choose the option that it gives you. Yeah, so you have to be at root level to do Pentbox, okay? So you gotta do sudo and then run all of that. But, you know, they also have their own, Linux release. Any question? See, I told you, right on time. All right. So I'm gonna stop recording.